Like, what is you scared of? I mean, I'm scared of North Philly, and live in Philly. I mean, I am, in a way that I'm not, but I also think the understanding the relationship between the regions that always existed so that you don't get the wealth of the nation without the history of the South, because it's the place that was wealth producing. You don't get that we still have, questions around federalism. We have the way that electoral politics function. It all, you can't separate it out. There's a way in which the engine of the nation actually depends upon the region as the region. It's the nation's breadbasket. So to push it aside, actually, I think absolutely does allow people to pretend as though what's happening in their own. So, for example, the lowest rates of high school graduation in major cities, New York City, for Black folks.
I didn't know that. I believe it. I didn't know it.
Most segregated regions for American schools are not. The South is more integrated than any other region for high schools in this country.
I read somewhere that on average, American schools are as segregated today as they were at the time of Brown versus the Board of Education.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which to me is part of why the way I tell the story is in the movement, Black Americans offered up a possibility to the United States. It was an olive branch, a possibility of having a multiracial democracy. White Americans largely rejected that with white flight and turning away
100%.
The cities and the schools. And so then when we tell the story of the Black Power movement, the general story is, oh, Black people started carrying guns. No, that was a reasonable response to having the olive branch turned away, to turn back in, similar to the post-Reconstruction era. Black people brought public education to the southern states, built these state constitutions that actually were much more humane and just and the like. Then there is the betrayal that comes at the end of Reconstruction. So Jim Crow comes down over the country. Black people turn inwards and start building institutions and schools of our own. So this is a repeated cycle. And perhaps that's one of the lessons we have to think about right now. We're going to have to turn inward again, not because of not being interested in a multiracial democracy, but unfortunately, devastatingly, white Americans consistently say they don't want that.
It's incredible to me, the idea that we had Black folks blown up in church in Alabama in the 60s, and then in 2015 the exact same thing again, guns, and then we have we just want to go to school. So there's the picture of Ruby Bridge is here in town, or the picture of the Little Rock Nine. And it's like the ladies in the background, the white ladies just yelling, spittle coming out of their mouth.
Yes.
Because you just want to get an education.
I was in Little Rock not that long ago interviewing a woman who was a teacher, Mother Annie Abrams. She has a museum in her house. Her house is bright blue. They make a quick mention for in the book, but it's this brilliantly blue house. And she has all these artifacts. And so we were doing an oral history of her. And we started walking around the streets with her daughter. And I began to realize we walked from her house, which is the same house she lived in 57 when they desegregated Central High. You could walk. It was like a 2-minute walk to Central High. And so I realized from her house, she could hear the screaming mobs. No, that's how close it was.
Hundreds of people, thousands of people yelling because some teenagers want to go to school and get an education.
Right. So the kind of terrorizing, this is not, and this, is often common in the South. We're right up on each other, right? But that she could hear what was happening. So to also think of the unbelievable courage, not just of those kids, but the entire Black community.
You know what?
And Central High is it's segregated inside the school. So it's an integrated school in terms of student body, but because of tracking, Black and white kids are in different classes.
It's almost like, I'm a religious person. It's almost like God is like, hey, let me give you this amazing, beautiful thing that's going to make your life better. And he's like, you smack it away, like you smack God's gift away. I learned today about during the Haitian Revolution, and also in Saint-Domingue, the big whites, the ones who own the plantations, they have been offered an alliance with the coloreds, who were like the sort of mixed race people who had their own property, and the enslaved people. And if they had taken that deal and made a multiracial society, they would have kept their property, kept their goods, and they could come up together. But because they refused that, the big whites were run off the island in like a little ship, and they were brought to like the Carolinas and the East Coast of America with nothing, and they became like refugees. Which to me is hilarious. Again, smacking away the gift over and over again and not learning the lesson.
Right. And the part that moves me is the, elite slave holding, plantation owning, mixed race people in Saint Domingue, some of whom decided to join the revolution with the enslaved.
Yeah.
They saw themselves as aligned.
Absolutely.
That to me is a powerful lesson of history.
I don't want to leave this without mentioning the amazing work you do with blue objects and materials, and also with nature itself. I mean, there's so many things. Just to like list some things. You do periwinkles. You do sort of like artifacts that have been found in the ground. You do blue jays, which apparently are not actually blue. Tell us about.
They're not. So, well, I have to say two things about blue jays. One, blue jays, and it's true of other little blue birds like the indigo bunting, which are also beautiful birds. They are not blue. They have melanin, like black folks. The same notes, but they look blue because of the structure of the wings and how the light refracts over them. So I just love that. But also, back in the day, the story was that the black folks would say is that you couldn't find a blue jay on Fridays because that was the day they would go down to the devil and report on all the evil that white folks had done. And it's this like there's all this lore about blues, a lot of it in hoodoo too. But what I love about that story is that it was one of those examples of a belief, notwithstanding, the denigration of Black people, a belief that the ways in which they were being treated was unjust. And that, mythology and folklore is a way of actually explaining some ethics and values. And that's part of what I wanted to recover in telling some of these stories. It's like, these are people who said, yeah, there's a ledger somewhere that is where there's this injustice is being kept track of. Yeah.
Before we get into the Q&A, we'll have time for only a few questions tonight. I do want to ask you, because I see these faces out here, they love you. I know that for a fact. So what I want to ask you is, what you do for yourself? Because these are heavy topics. These are difficult times. What do you do for yourself?
Oh, I read a lot of fiction. So thank you. I listen to music every day. I'm in a lot of prayer these days, and I really do try to sustain and cultivate my relationships with my friends and my children and my family. Like we were talking about this earlier, when we talk about self-care, as like, and spas are great. I love spas, but I think the deepest kind of self-care you can do is actually being in right relation with people around you, caring, like having interdependence. And so I'm trying to be very attentive to that, because it's so easy as we on the grind to sort of push aside the human connection, and that's the thing we need more than anything right now.
That's a word right there. So when I think about that guy the guy that has the cyber beast, the Twitter, what's that guy's name? Elon Muskie? What was his name? I can't imagine anybody's like just hanging with him being like, yo, that's my dude, Elon. Let's go just chill out for a while. Like him and all his buddies. I just can't imagine that.
And then who would want to?
Who would want to?
Right.
For the best moments in my life is being with people that I love, and just that vibe that comes off of the skin and
That's
being in
right.
space.
Yeah. It's a blessing.
Is it time for our Q&A, or should we? All right. So we'll take 2 or 3 questions. Please raise your hand, and Monty can pick from the audience. We see hands around here. What's your name? Sage, what's up?
Thank you for your work and your thorough your research and your study, and all of the things that you cite in your work. I'm in a curiosity around the like Black and blue, right? And I think about James Brown talking about Black as an attitude, right? So Black is both a people, and there's so much that writes about Black as an ideology, Blackness. And so when I hear black and blue, I hear both black in blue, and then I hear black in blue, right? So I wonder, based on your question earlier, what can blue teach us? What is the ideology of blue that can offer us something? What can it offer us in this moment?
So it's such a good question. There is a universality to blue, right? And one of the things I say is the whole world loves the color blue because it's this color, the sky and the waters. And it is a contrapuntal color, meaning that it's hot and cold. It's a source of wonder. It's sublime, but it's also dangerous when you think of the ocean. Blackness is as expansive as that. And so that's part of what I'm trying to get at is that, and this is partially because of the journey actually across the oceans. It is giving sound to blue, the world's favorite, through the blues, giving sound to the world's favorite color. It is existing in that space of both wound and beauty and danger and grace and returning to the water, even after how devastating it was. For me, this is a kind of height of human expression. It is a spiritual grandeur that you can find in the tradition. So I'm telling a specific story about Black folks, but what I'm trying to say is something about how universally human, right? Blackness, actually, that there's something about the height of what it means to be a human, both the depths, the cruelty, right? But also what it means to be self-sustaining and creative in the face of that. And so to me, it's like, is to understand that Blackness and by telling stories about blue has that kind of scope and range and power. And that's what I'm trying